on how.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny, and welcome to ESPN Classic's Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame, a series that takes a fresh look at sports personalities who are remembered largely for their mistakes, controversial moments, or questionable decisions. Our mission is not to further vilify these individuals, but instead to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has been accepted as fact. In so many cases, the facts have become distorted and nuances lost with the passage of time. In this show, we'll attempt to make a case for the man who could easily be called the poster boy for this very series. Few men have suffered more for one moment on the field of play than Bill Buckner. When a grounder rolled through the legs of the Red Sox first baseman in the 1986 World Series, he became the lightning rod for decades of futility. Before we count down the reasons why you can't blame Buckner for Boston losing the series, we'll look at the events that led to Buckner's moment of infamy.
With the Red Sox fan, no fan in sport cares more deeply. At times moronically, at times imbecilically.
It's like Shakespeare, like waiting with bated breath to see what collapse is going to happen.
Look at all the great teams and the times that the Red Sox were there at the door.
They were heavily favored to beat the Cardinals in 1946. The series went 7 games. Venus Slaughter scoring from first base as Johnny Pesky held the ball, and the Sox lost a series they ought to have won.
There it goes, a long drive. If it stays fair, home run. We will have a 7th game in the 1975 World Series.
Even after Carlton Fisk hits the miraculous home run, they're still one miracle short and lose the 1975 World Series.
And then, of course, in 1978, the Sox had blown a 14-game lead after July 20th. And then Bucky Dent hitting the home run in the playoff game to beat the Red Sox 5-4.
Yastrzemski will not get its home run. A 3-run home run for Bucky Dent.
I mean, of all the guys to hit a home run, Bucky Dent, you know what I mean?
By 1986, I think that Red Sox fans had more or less accepted the old Dublin ballad. Being Irish means laughing at life, knowing that in the end, life will break your heart.
The sad truth of the ballad seemed to be holding for Boston in Game 5 of the 1986 ALCS. Down 3-1, the Red Sox trailed the Angels 5-4 with 2 outs and 1 on in the 9th inning.
To left field and deep and down he goes back and it's gone! Unbelievable!
When Dave Henderson hit the home run against the Angels to take, victory from the jaws of defeat, at that point it seemed, history has turned.
When Dave Henderson hit that home run, it was the shot heard around the world for Bostonians. Now we are going back to Boston, and we knew we were going to win.
The Red Sox are trying to go from last rights to the World Series, and they do.
After beating the Angels in 7 games, the Red Sox took the first 2 contests of the World Series against the heavily favored Mets. The winds of fate had changed, or so it seemed.
And there's a drive into deep left field. He just watches this one, and it's going to go on the pavilion top. It is 6-2 Boston.
After losing the next 2 games, Boston continued the march in Game 5.
Fastball high, and he chased it again. The Red Sox win it 4-2. They now have a 3-2 advantage.
It seemed like going into the World Series, all that historical baggage had been tossed off. And I remember thinking to myself before Game 6 that, gee, it really looks like it is going to happen.
Swung on, there's a fly ball, deep left field. Way back it goes. It is gone, a home run. Deja vu.
In the 10th inning of Game 6, Dave Henderson put Boston ahead with a leadoff home run. After scoring a second run, the Red Sox took the field just 3 outs away from their first world championship in 68 years.
I could see we're going to be world champions. So I was feeling it. digging myself, and we were digging ourselves.
Henderson going to run it down. And the Mets are down to their last out.
I'm thanking God. This is great, real emotional time, and I'm spiritually happy. I mean, I'm almost in tears.
It meant something to all of New England that is very, very hard to explain unless you've experienced it. And here they were, right on the brink.
With 2 outs, the outcome appeared less clear after the Mets rallied for 3 straight singles off Calvin Schiraldi.
And that's going to be hit into center field, base hit. Here comes Carter to score, and the tying run is at third in Kevin Mitchell.
With his team still ahead by a run, manager John McNamara tapped Bob Stanley to close out the game.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base.
With the score tied at 5 and runners on first and third, Stanley ran the count to 2-2 against Mookie Wilson.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
When the ball went through Buckner's legs, it was as if time stood still. It all kind of unfolded in slow motion.
He took his eye off the ball and caused their fans a great deal of heartache. That may be the worst moment that I've ever seen in baseball.
I haven't missed a ground ball in 2 months, but that was a hell of a one to miss.
I've just got that sinking feeling. It feels like something died inside of me. It's probably the darkest day in Boston baseball history.
It ruined the lives of many people. I just knew in my heart when they had lost that in my lifetime, the Red Sox will never win it all. In my children's lifetime, the Red Sox will never win it all.
In Game 7, the Red Sox built an early 3-run lead, only to lose 8-5.
Now the pitch on the way. He struck him out. The Mets have won the World Series.
In a depressing aftermath that would last until 2004, Bill Buckner's error in Game 6 became the enduring symbol of Red Sox futility.
To come that close and not come away with it, given everything else that had happened to this franchise over the years, it was traumatic.
People that don't live in Boston don't know what he went through. People would come up and throw garbage on his lawn, and he really took a beating up here.
Buckner walked into a bar in Boston, and somebody recognized him and picked up a piece of fruit and rolled it down the bar at Buckner and said, "See if you can catch that."
Well, I'm from Boston, so no matter what you do to Bill Buckner, it's not bad enough. He broke the hearts of people in 6 states.
He was driven out of New England because to New England, Bill Buckner was like Rasputin. He'd done evil, wicked things. We all make mistakes, but that was a mistake that will haunt him the rest of his life.
That's the conventional wisdom behind why Bill Buckner has been made to blame for Boston losing the 1986 World Series. Perhaps Red Sox fans, having lived through a championship, are now ready to be a little more reasonable. Either way, we're going to count down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Buckner later in the show. But first, there are more than just 5. We call them the best of the rest. Missed opportunities. In Game 6, the Red Sox repeatedly committed the sin of omission. They left 14 runners on base.
We did not capitalize on scoring chances early in the ball game.
In the 10th inning, Jim Rice did have a shot to knock in more. They did have a 2-run lead. 2-run lead, if you're a World Series champ, should be enough in the last inning. Of course, it wasn't.
Another best of the rest. Oil Can Boyd. Did the pitcher jinx his team by celebrating prematurely during Game 6?
Supposedly, Oil Can Boyd had already gone into the Red Sox clubhouse and had popped open the first bottle of champagne.
All of a sudden, I get bear hugged from behind, and I turned around and looked, and it's Oil Can Boyd. And I said to him, "I don't know where you've been sitting, but get your butt back there and sit down. We still have 1 out to go."
Another best of the rest. Shea Stadium's message board. Someone jumped the gun in the 10th inning.
I glance up to the scoreboard in left center and I see, "Congratulations to the 1986 World Champion Boston Red Sox."
And it seemed like ever since that went up there, that's when the floor came out from underneath the Red Sox.
Reason number 5, Roger Clemens' exit from Game 6. Whose decision was it?
Another great piece of Red Sox folklore is why did Roger leave the game? Roger says he had blisters, and McNamara said he just wanted to come out of the game.
In 1986, Clemens, with a 24-4 record, won the MVP and Cy Young Awards. In Game 6 of the World Series, the Red Sox led 3-2 after 7 innings. Their ace had given up only 4 hits on 135 pitches when he was taken out of the game for reasons that still remain unclear.
I had a blood blister that was bleeding, but the only pitch that hindered me throwing was the slider.
He came off the mound at the end of the 7th inning and said, "That's all I can pitch."
I've never asked to come out of a game. I'll pitch till all of my fingers are bleeding. I don't know why Mac would make that comment.
I wasn't going to force him to go back out. It was the truth in 1986, and it's the truth sitting here today.
Clemens has been called back, it seems like.
I was on deck to hit. I was ready to hit.
Sure, it's funny how I asked out of the game, but I'm getting ready to go hit.
I don't believe a word McNamara says. I believe Roger Clemens. You're talking about a competitor. You can't tell me over a silly little blister Roger would want out.
We all looked at it, and what do you say? Some individuals, they can work through it. Some individuals, they can't. And it depends upon what pitch they're throwing and all that.
Did he ask out of the game?
No.
That, to me, is a much bigger deal than Buckner. If you want to attach blame, a better place to go is with McNamara and or Clemens for that decision.
Did that reason grab you? If not, we've got 4 more to go. Here's reason number 4. Calvin Schiraldi, the Red Sox reliever, faltered in Game 6 and 7.
Calvin Schiraldi, from the time he walked out of the bullpen, looked like a guy who didn't want to be out there.
Those eyes, you see those eyes. It's the famous Calvin Schiraldi eyes. Not a good sign. Just didn't have the killer instinct, couldn't finish the job.
Schiraldi, whom the Mets traded to Boston after the 1985 season, allowed the Mets to tie the game in the 8th inning. With 2 outs and no one on base in the 10th, the only thing standing between the Red Sox and a championship was his former battery mate, Gary Carter.
I couldn't breathe. I was so excited. I mean, it happened to me in the College World Series, too. I had to go off the back of the mound and try to catch my breath.
I just came to the plate with a great deal of confidence because Calvin Schiraldi was with the ball club the year before. The Phillies who were beating our brains in. And Schiraldi happened to be on the mound. He wanted out of there. And I could just see there was kind of a scared look in his eyes. In the bottom of the 10th inning, I said, hey, this guy ain't going to get me out.
Lined into left field, base hit for Carter, and the Mets are still alive.
It's a crock of Why would I have been scared? There's never been a time in my life that I've been scared on the mound.
But in an interview following his save in Game 1, Schiraldi was singing a different tune.
I was scared to death out there tonight. I mean, it's really terrifying out there, just being in the World Series and everything.
After Carter's 10th inning single, pinch hitter Kevin Mitchell stepped to the plate.
Third ball, and that's going to be hit to center, base hit. And now suddenly with 2 out in the 10th inning, the tying runs are aboard, and Ray Knight will be the batter.
With the count 0-2 on Knight, Schiraldi threw hard inside.
And that's going to be hit into center field, base hit. Here comes Carter to score, and the tying run is at third.
After giving up 4 runs on 4 hits, the night was over for the right-hander.
I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm so quick that it's just a rotten feeling.
Calvin Schiraldi gets to, with on 1 strike, and he can't get out of it. If there's one person that probably shoulders the most blame for Game 6 and 7, it's Calvin Schiraldi.
You've got Game 7. Calvin Schiraldi comes in and gives up 3 runs, I think, in a third of an inning. How come he's not the big goat that people pick on?
The battery of Rich Gedman and Bob Stanley and the wild pitch that got away in the 10th inning of Game 6.
You really can't blame Buckner. I thought the bigger play was Gedman not handling the pitch by Stanley, allowing the tying run to score. Because now everything changes. The whole dynamic of the game changes.
With the Red Sox still leading 5-4, manager John McNamara called to the bullpen for Stanley to face Mookie Wilson. With Kevin Mitchell on third, Ray Knight on first, and the count at 2-2, Stanley let one fly.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base.
Players told me that the ball was supposed to be a sinker, and Stanley threw a little bit of a cross-seamer.
Getty did call for a fastball inside, and when I went to throw it, he went outside. So he got a little mix-up, and the ball went to the backstop.
It wasn't the ball that Buckner missed. It was the pitch that Stanley threw, because that let the Mets tie it.
3 reasons down and 2 to go. Here's reason number 2. Mookie Wilson's speed. Had Buckner fielded the ball cleanly, Wilson may well have beaten either Buckner or Stanley to the bag.
Mookie's one of the fastest guys in the game at that time getting down to first base.
There's a guy that can get down the line in under 4 seconds.
I've looked at the replays, and to tell you the truth, even if he caught that ball, Mookie's safe.
Supporting the supposition that Wilson would have been safe had the ball been fielded cleanly was Buckner's ailing legs.
His ankles had been gouged. They had been operated and reoperated upon.
This guy played through a tremendous amount of pain. He had no joint left in his ankle whatsoever. He tried, he was there, so you cannot blame him.
Further hindering Buckner's chances was his field position.
We had a pickoff play on second base. Marty was out of position, so I had to move over to cover the hole.
It was hit just slowly enough, and Buckner was playing just deep enough, and Mookie was running just hard enough, and I think to myself, you know what? He's going to beat that play.
In all honesty, I was just worried about beating the pitcher to the bag, because I don't think Buckner could have beaten me to the bag.
Bob Stanley wasn't there, and he wasn't going to beat Mookie to first base. So at the very least, the game would have been tied, and who knows what would have happened after that.
John McNamara. The Red Sox manager made some decisions that still have many fans scratching their heads.
The Red Sox should have won that World Series. They were managed by a fool.
I blame Johnny McNamara. I mean, he was being paid allegedly to manage that team. He didn't.
In Game 6, with veteran slugger Don Baylor ready and waiting, McNamara chose rookie Mike Greenwell to pinch hit for Clemens in the 8th inning. Greenwell struck out on 3 pitches with a man on second.
Greenwell had barely played during the '86 season, and Greenwell looked pathetic. He was useless at that point.
To this day, he's second-guessed by his players for not putting Baylor in at that point. And as Boston writers pointed out, it was a move he made many times during the season.
What McNamara did do with regularity that October was bench the hobbled Buckner for defensive purposes. In all 7 Boston wins that postseason, he inserted Dave Stapleton at first base in the late innings. But in the 10th inning of Game 6, Buckner took the field with a 5-3 lead.
I wrote a column the day before the Buckner era, the clear premise being that he was too injured, he shouldn't play, and most important, that the game finds people like this who are vulnerable.
I talked to McNamara about it in the 8th and 9th inning. I said, hey, if you feel like somebody else is better to be out there, go ahead and put him out there.
Ground ball to first base. Buckner, it goes by him, and here comes the winning run. The Mets have won it.
I remember riding down in the elevator after the game with Bart Giamatti, who had spent his whole life growing up a Red Sox fan, and the first thing Giamatti said when I got on the elevator was, that f***ing McNamara, how could he leave Buckner in there?
For whatever reason, whether John McNamara got sentimental or Buckner talked him into it, he wanted to be in the picture when they won it. I think he just caved and figured, what are the odds that there's going to be a ball that's going to flip this thing around on us?
In Game 7, Bruce Hurst held the Mets scoreless through 5 innings. In the 6th, New York scored 3 runs to tie Boston. McNamara then went to Schiraldi in the 7th. The shell-shocked reliever promptly gave up 3 more runs. After Boston scored 2 runs in the 8th, Al Nipper came in only to give those 2 runs back. The Mets' 8-5 victory gave them the World Series.
We'd all like to see what would have happened if Oil Can or Clemens or someone else had gone into that game.
I was in the bullpen. Every time the bullpen phone rang, you get excitement running through you, thinking you're going to get the call to get up, but it never happened.
You have John McNamara sort of being frozen at the wheel at the critical time. He couldn't make the moves that he had made all year long and that probably should have been made then.
Buckner was not the GOAT in 1986. John McNamara, I think, is culpable for the Sox blowing the '86 series.
He's got a good Irish name, but I don't think that they raise many toasts to John McNamara in Boston.
Well, there you have it, the top 5 reasons why you can't blame Bill Buckner for Boston losing the 1986 World Series. In light of close examination and a 2004 Red Sox championship, it's time to let this one rest. I'm Brian Kenny. Thanks for joining us.
The dreams are that you're going to have a great series and win, and the nightmares are that you're going to let the winning run score on a ground ball through your legs.